You're watching Retirement Now.
Welcome to Retirement Now with April Roberts. I'm Ben Bauman. Today, you'll learn cutting-edge financial strategies and tips on earning income for life. Joining me today, one of the best financial advisors around, April Roberts from Roberts Wealth Management here in the greater Houston area. You've no doubt seen April on TV or in magazines and newspapers. She's also helped train other financial professionals across the country. Now, she's here to help you plan the retirement you want. April, welcome. So good to have you here.
Hi, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for
Good.
asking. I thought a good place to start maybe would be with your story. How did you decide that helping people with their retirements was something that you wanted to do?
Well, Ben, it happened in 2008 of all years.
Okay.
So prior to that, I was actually a trained lawyer. I went to Notre Dame Law School, and at age 22, I came out of law school thinking I was going to save the world.
Like a lot of 22-year-olds, yes.
Exactly. And instead, I ended up working at the largest law firm in Atlanta, Georgia, saving corporate America. So I don't know how all my clients ended up being Fortune 500 instead of people I was saving their lives, but that's how it happened.
Sure.
A couple of years later, I met an Italian gentleman, got married, moved to Milan, and I became very proficient in Italian cooking. So I've been a lawyer, I've been an Italian housewife, right?
Right.
And then 2008 for most people was a devastating year.
Financially, yes.
Exactly. And for me, it was personally very devastating because that was the year I was getting divorced. And, you know, in my family, people don't get divorced. So that was not somewhere I thought I'd be.
Sure.
So I found myself back home in Mississippi, living at my parents' house. And luckily, I had my law degree to fall back on. So I was practicing law. But my parents and I are very close. And as you know, my dad does exactly what I do. That's who I learned everything from. And so for fun, I would go with my dad to his dinner seminars, workshops, and client meetings. And I would go to seminars, I'd greet people, I'd seat them, I'd set appointments. And, you know, I just saw how hungry they were for the information and for help, right? And how important it was to them. And then when I would go to his client meetings, it just amazed me how grateful people were to my dad for what he did.
And this was in 2008.
Exactly.
Not every financial professional is experiencing gratefulness at that point.
Right. So it really hit home one day. I was going to lunch with my dad and we ran into some of his clients. And, you know, the guy was an engineer, poker faced, never really knew what he was thinking. Great people, though. And she was a school nurse and just, you know, very bubbly. So she hugged my dad. She knew me. She hugged me. And her husband looked at my dad and, you know, kind of patted him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Paul, we're really grateful we got to know you.
Wow.
You know, thank you so much." And this is October of 2008.
Yeah.
So at a time when I was looking for my next purpose in life, I saw my dad was making a difference. And, you know, it really reinvigorated that I wanted to do something to help people and make a difference. So after that, I like to joke that my dad tricked me into the business.
Okay.
He offered me a free trip to West Palm Beach where he was going for a financial conference.
Sure.
So, you know, I thought, oh, I'm the oldest child. I generally make my parents happy. Hey, I'll go to a couple of meetings, sneak off, do some shopping, go to the beach.
Sure.
So this was my plan. And, you know, Ben, unfortunately, I got down there and it rained every single day. So at the time, I thought this was a bad omen. But when I went and sat in the meetings with my dad, I realized why people were grateful to him for what he did and how he changed their lives. Because I started working in the year 2000. So, you know, 80 hours a week, maxing out my 401k like a good employee.
Right.
2 years later, I had a 201k.
Yes.
So I didn't have a great taste in my mouth for investing. I don't really love to lose money. And so for all the years my dad had said, "Hey, you should join me, you should join me," I couldn't imagine sitting across the table from clients and telling them, "Hey, I'm sorry, you lost 30, 40, 50%, but don't worry, it'll come back."
Right.
I mean, it just wasn't in my nature. So when I went to this conference and I saw that my dad had strategies that help keep people from experiencing those losses and staying retired. And, you know, I love to tease my clients, I want your money to be very, very boring, right? I don't want you to worry about your money.
Right.
So I saw that at this conference and I finally realized why my dad did what he did and how he did it.
Wow. And that was in 2008. And here we are today. And tell me how it is for you today. What excites you? What gets you up and going in the morning? Is it literally the same thing that got you excited initially?
Yes, and it changes over time, Ben,
Okay.
because you become close to your clients. I
Sure.
mean, you're sitting down with them every year, and we're talking about their hopes and their dreams and their goals, and you become incredibly close to your clients. So some people have been clients for 9 years now.
Wow.
And, as they get older, they're facing different challenges. Their health is declining. I mean, they have trouble with their kids and grandkids. And so you kind of go through that with them. And what feels good is when they come into the office and they share these things, and then you go over their plan with them and they realize they're fine financially, that's one less worry they have. And it's amazing how their gratitude just grows.
Wow, that's got to be a great feeling for you.
is.
I certainly understand it. And great information. Maybe you've noticed that things are done a little bit differently at Roberts Wealth Management. There's another thing that surprised me that April was sharing earlier. Maybe it will surprise you as well. It's the number one fear that people have when they're nearing or in retirement. We'll get into that when we come back. There's so much more to come. Please stay with us.
Are your investment accounts exposed to too much risk? How will your nest egg be impacted the next time the market experiences a correction? Now is a great time to get a complimentary retirement review with April and the team at Roberts Wealth Management.
We believe planning for retirement should be taken very seriously.
Here's what they'll do. Review your current strategy and expose some of the hidden weaknesses of your retirement portfolio. Compile a fee report to uncover how much you're really being charged in fees. Show you safer money alternatives to ensure you don't outlive your income in retirement. Plus, stress test your portfolio and perform a risk assessment of your current retirement accounts.
It's one of the most important things you can do. It's about planning for your future.
Call Roberts Wealth Management now to get started on your complimentary retirement review with April and the team at Roberts Wealth Management. Call Roberts Wealth Management now.
Welcome back to Retirement Now with April Roberts. I'm Ben Bauman, and I'm here with April of Roberts Wealth Management. She's been helping people here in the greater Houston area get successfully to and through retirement for about a decade now. April, you mentioned something to me earlier, surprised me a little bit. The number one fear that people have nearing retirement is running out of money?
Well, Ben, I'm not a psychiatrist,
Yeah.
but in my experience, when people are coming in, that's absolutely top of their mind. I mean, we meet with families who've saved $250,000 for retirement and families who've saved over $2 million. And still, it's the top concern is running out of money in retirement.
And that does sound like a big challenge to help someone get past. How do you go about that?
Well, you got to take challenges on. I'm
Yes.
just kidding. Usually, when you have a plan in place, fear goes away. That's
Okay.
what we find. So it's very important that we set an income plan in place for them because really, without income, there is no retirement. And this is completely different to the way they've been thinking about retirement in the past.
Really?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Well, I share with people that I'm going to challenge the way they think,
Yes.
right? And so the number one way is we have to think differently about retirement.
Okay.
So I like to use the analogy of climbing a mountain. Ben, are you a big hiker?
I do hike, yes. I enjoy it.
Perfect. Well, I do too. I love it. And it started a couple of years ago when a client invited me to hike the Grand Canyon.
Okay. Maybe I shouldn't call myself a hiker. You're talking the Grand Canyon here. Maybe I'm more of a brisk walker. But the Grand Canyon, that sounds like a great challenge.
Yeah, something I never thought I'd do.
Okay.
But, when your 65-year-old client invites you to join them, what are you going to say, right?
Right, there's a challenge.
So I figured, if they're still doing this, I need to do it too.
Good for you.
So we went and did that, and it's pretty hot here in Houston. For months and months, we're training in the heat and humidity.
Right.
And we're in the same park every Saturday, for numbers of hours, and we're going up the same hill ad nauseum because there aren't many hills in Houston,
Okay.
right? How do you train to climb a mountain? And then we're going up hundreds of flights of steps, and finally a member of the group one Saturday got really grumpy, and she said, "Hey, can't I just go inside in the air conditioning and train on the Stairmaster?"
Right.
And our trainer said, "No, absolutely not." And she said, "Well, why?" And he said, "I want you to think about this, right? When you go on the Stairmaster, you're going up the entire time. You never
Okay.
come down. So you're training one set of muscles. What the heck are you going to do when you get to the top of the mountain and you need to come down? And you need different muscles and different strategies. So I tell my clients, I share with them that this is exactly how retirement is. They've been so successful. They've made money, they've saved money, they've invested wisely, and they've gotten up that mountain, right?
Sure.
But now they're at the peak or almost there, and they're looking down, just like my friend. How the heck am I going to get down, right? And so that's where they need a plan in place, because people realize that they need to do something different. They just don't really understand what it is.
Wow.
So I think once you put this plan in place and you explain what you need to do differently and the obstacles you can come across on the way down, then that fear starts to subside because it's no longer an unknown.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about this plan, this strategy that you help develop to get someone through retirement. What kinds of things go into that?
Well, great. So number one is an income plan, like I mentioned earlier, right? Because without income, there's no retirement.
Right.
So we have to show them exactly where their money is coming from every month, and we need to be smart about where we distribute it from. And that's the number one thing. And then we need to make sure they're allocated so they don't have too much risk, because one of the greatest threats to a happy retirement is losing half of it.
Yes.
And then there are other things that come up. Clients came in just the other day for their annual review, and they said, April, we're so happy we're getting our check every month. We don't even think about it. You have us right. We're not worried about our money and losing too much.
That's great.
Yeah, he said, but we have this other concern because Sue, his wife, her family doesn't have a great health history. And so they're worried, what if something happens to her and she's challenged like her family was? I said, great, we need to get someone in here to talk about that, right? And so there are different obstacles that come up when they're coming down the mountain, and there are different blind spots that people don't see in retirement. So I just said, hey, John, look over your shoulder right there. My pictures of Joe Montana, right? I have this homage to Joe Montana in my office.
Yeah.
And it's not just because I love Joe Montana, and don't even argue with me. He's the best quarterback ever still,
no argument
right?
here. Yep.
But it's also to remind myself that I'm the quarterback of my client's retirement, because things come up like this. Other fears come up and they need a solution to it. So what we don't want them to do is just walk into anyone off the street, right? I call this a referral of convenience. I want them to have a referral of merit and work with team members we've worked with and we trust. And in fact, myself or a member of my team, we're happy to sit in the meeting with them because we know our clients well.
Okay. April, you know what? I'm not sure I've thought of retirement in exactly that way. Having someone, an expert, looking at every facet of retirement. When we come back, April will share one strategy that helps her clients navigate down that retirement mountain. And then later, we'll answer some of your questions. First, though, here's how you can contact April and the team at Roberts Wealth Management.
Are your investment accounts exposed to too much risk? How will your nest egg be impacted the next time the market experiences a correction? Now is a great time to get a complimentary retirement review with April and the team at Roberts Wealth Management.
We believe planning for retirement should be taken very seriously.
Here's what they'll do. Review your current strategy and expose some of the hidden weaknesses of your retirement portfolio. Compile a fee report to uncover how much you're really being charged in fees. Show you safer money alternatives to ensure you don't outlive your income in retirement. Plus, stress test your portfolio and perform a risk assessment of your current retirement accounts.
It's one of the most important things you can do. It's about planning for your future.
Call Roberts Wealth Management now to get started on your complimentary retirement review with April and the team at Roberts Wealth Management. Call Roberts Wealth Management now.
In today's Roberts on Retirement, April sheds some light on a strategy to help us survive market volatility. April?
Let's look at the benchmark of the stock market, the S&P 500. Most of us are familiar with that, and it's what most financial companies follow. They try to keep up with what the S&P is doing, which is actually very difficult to do. If we went back in a time machine to September 30th, 1998, and we invested $100,000, we can see that it will grow until we're hit by the dot-com crash in 2000. And what was the advice we were hearing?
Write it out. We're in it for the long haul.
That's right. This was that blanket advice we heard, and for the most part, that's what everyone did. They followed that advice and rode it into the ground. Eventually, the market started to catch back up. But it took the average person not 1 or 2 years, but 6 to 7 years just to recover the losses and get back to even. And then what happened? 2008. Once again, we take a big hit. Here's what that $100,000 was 11 years later. It's been up, it's been down, but here it is, right back to $100,000. Now, over those 11 years, did the stock market stay the same? No, it didn't. There were periods of time that the market gave us gains and other times that it took those gains away. The real question is this: if we're not locking in our gains while we have them, are they really ours? No. I'm going to show you a different strategy, one that we use for some of our clients for a portion of their portfolio. And if you don't have a plan for downside protection, I really believe this might be a good strategy for a portion of your assets as well. Here's a chart that looks at the past 17 years of the stock market. The red line is the S&P 500. The green line shows what would have happened with an investment of $100,000 in this particular vehicle. On day one, the floor goes beneath your principal, but your $100,000 is protected. Now, look what happens when the market goes up. You go up as well. Notice that you don't go up as much as the market, but you are still participating in the market gains. And the gains lock in each year. And once we've earned that gain, we never give it back. So back in 2008, our clients in this vehicle didn't participate in those dramatic market losses. You're not going to make as much in the up years, but when the markets go down, you're not being subjected to those losses either. If you take a look at the market for the last 30 years, that will shed some light on this. This is the S&P. It dropped 47% here in 2000 and 2001. Now, if we move forward to 07 through 09, it dropped 57%. This vehicle typically comes with a time frame, usually 5 to 10 year span, but you do have the ability to access up to 10% per year if you need to. Again, as good as this is not where you put all of your money, but it could be a good option for a portion of your portfolio. We feel with the current state of the stock market, managing downside risk is the most important part of our client's retirement plan. What is your plan in managing downside risk? Do you have one?
Thanks, April. Sounds like this is a tool a lot of people are going to want to know more about. Coming up, April will be back to talk about what you want to know. That's coming up in our Q&A segment. First, though, here's a special offer from April and her team at Roberts Wealth Management.
Are your investment accounts exposed to too much risk? How will your nest egg be impacted the next time the market experiences a correction? Now is a great time to get a complimentary retirement review with April and the team at Roberts Wealth Management.
We believe planning for retirement should be taken very seriously.
Here's what they'll do. Review your current strategy and expose some of the hidden weaknesses of your retirement portfolio. Compile a fee report to uncover how much you're really being charged in fees. Show you safer money alternatives to ensure you don't outlive your income in retirement. Plus, stress test your portfolio and perform a risk assessment of your current retirement accounts.
It's one of the most important things you can do. It's about planning for your future.
Call Roberts Wealth Management now to get started on your complimentary retirement review with April and the team at Roberts Wealth Management. Call Roberts Wealth Management now.
Welcome back to Retirement Now with April Roberts. I'm Ben Bauman. You know, April and her team have been helping people for about a decade here in the Houston area, not only get to retirement, but through retirement. And now it's time to answer some of your questions. So, April, are you ready?
I'm ready as
All right.
always, Ben.
Let's start this one with Robert from Katy, who says, I am retired, but I still have some investments in the market. April, I hear you talk about risk. How do I know if I'm taking too much risk with that money?
So, Robert, I'm happy to hear you've been listening to me. All joking aside, I love that question, Ben, because, sometimes people focus too much on upside performance when it comes to their investments. And remember, we talked about the mountain earlier, and it's because they have the going up the mountain mentality.
Right.
And so now they're at the peak of the mountain, and they really need to ask themselves the other question.
Okay.
Hey, I want this kind of upside potential. I want this opportunity, but here's the risk on the downside I'm willing to take. So remember we talked about changing strategies and mindset in retirement?
Right.
That's an important one. So I think that risk becomes so important. And because of that, we have this really neat tool in our office. That first meeting, we go through it with everyone we meet with.
Okay.
And what it does is really help us determine with them that balance between, risk and reward,
Right.
and what their perfect balance is, because it's different for everyone, Ben. And the financial world makes the mistake of not pinpointing this to the particular person in front of them.
I see.
Right? So I love this tool because we get the right balance for you. I also love it because it gets me to know their life. And that's one of the best things about what I do, right? We become part of people's lives.
Yeah.
And so the first question of this risk analysis asks you to define what's a devastating loss. And this is different for everyone.
Sure.
But, just the other day I was meeting with a couple and they've done very well, and their devastating loss was $500,000. I mean, that would just be too much for them to take, right? And I said, hey guys, that's good, but let's pause for a moment. Let's talk about what this $500,000 means. Do you remember your first job? And they talked amongst themselves, and he kind of lit up and he said, yeah, I had a paper route, 6 days a week. I was throwing the paper in. I learned so much. And I said, how much were you making? And he said, $1.50. And I said, I bet you didn't save any of that $1.50, right? And he said, oh yeah, I saved 50 cents of every $1.50.
Wow.
I know, even his wife was shocked. And so we talked about that, and we talked about when they met in college and their first jobs after college.
Okay.
And how they sat down and really put together a savings plan immediately out of college. I mean, he'd been saving since his paper route, right?
Yes.
And so I said, hey guys, do you remember when you saved that first $100,000? And this is my favorite part, Ben, because their faces light up and they say, yeah, remember we were working here, we were living here, and John was 8 years old. So, that means we were 32, right?
Okay.
And that was a big benchmark. They had saved $100,000.
Sure, yes.
And then I said, now guys, think about this. What about this $500,000 that would be a devastating loss for you? When did you reach that point? And boy, their faces lit up. And they said, by our early 50s, that's when we hit this mark and we really started thinking, this is great. We're going to be able to retire. We can plan for this. And I said, I just want to pause here for a moment, because the problem is with most people, if you were down $500,000 in your investment plan, what's your advisor going to tell you? Oh, the market dipped. Don't worry.
Wait it
it's
out.
a paper loss, right? We're in it for the long haul. But I mean, in reality, this $500,000 is sacred. They started saving with a paper route, and by the time they were early 50s, they had $500,000 saved up for retirement. And so they just don't have the luxury of losing that amount of money anymore. And any advisor who would tell them they did, I don't think has their best interest at heart. So I just want people to understand that that $500,000 is sacred to us. We can never fully understand what they did to get there, but we want to share their lives, their stories, and we want to never be guilty of telling them, hey, just hang in there, it's a paper loss.
Yeah, that really puts the risk factor into perspective. Thanks so much for
Yes.
that. Here's another question. Sandra in Sugarland says, I have an old 401k from a job I left several years ago. I keep tabs on it and it's doing okay. Why not just leave it there?
So Sandra, no offense, if you haven't learned already, I'm pretty direct. So I like to challenge people to think a little bit differently,
Okay.
right? Because I mean, I'm tasked with being their consultant
There
on
you
their
go.
retirement plan,
Sure.
so it's kind of important. So, Sandra, first question is, if you left the company, why'd you leave your money there, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then second, is okay good enough for you and your family? I mean, we really want to challenge these thoughts that we all have. We tend to fall in love with our investments or think, oh, they're good enough. But really, is it doing what it needs to do to get you to and through retirement? And that's what we have to question. You know, Ben, this happens all the time. I had a client come in the other day for a review, and she's been a client for 3 years now. And, you know, we have most of her money put aside in an investment plan for retirement. But she had one 401k, same comment. Hey, it's doing okay. The fees are low. April, is it okay if I leave it there? Well, of course, it's your money. Well, never let me analyze it. Never let me look at it. 3 years later, she said, hey, this 401k, I'm not so sure about it. Can we analyze it and see if it's best for me? So I put the 401k through a risk and fee analysis, and my client was shocked to see that she could lose 40% in this investment, and she couldn't believe how high the fees were she was paying in the 401k. Right? Because everyone thinks 401ks have low fees.
Sure.
You know, so once we put it through our risk and fee audit, it made sense to her that it was time to do something different with that 401k.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe you're in the same situation. Is it time to do something different? If you have a question, you can always go to askaprilroberts.com or call Roberts Wealth Management at the number on your screen. Why wait? Call. Start planning your retirement now. I'm Ben Bauman saying so long for April Roberts and the team at Roberts Wealth Management, because you deserve better.
Are your investment accounts exposed to too much risk? How will your nest egg be impacted the next time the market experiences a correction? Now is a great time to get a complimentary retirement review with April and the team at Roberts Wealth Management.
We believe planning for retirement should be taken very seriously.
Here's what they'll do. Review your current strategy and expose some of the hidden weaknesses of your retirement portfolio. Compile a fee report to uncover how much you're really being charged in fees. Show you safer money alternatives to ensure you don't outlive your income in retirement. Plus, stress test your portfolio and perform a risk assessment of your current retirement accounts.
It's one of the most important things you can do. It's about planning for your future.
Call Roberts Wealth Management now to get started on your complimentary retirement review with April and the team at Roberts Wealth Management. Call Roberts Wealth Management now